11. Let me see if that's what I want. So it says, be not ignorant of anything. Because see, that's the reason why we end up getting caught up at the end of the day. We celebrate things we don't know nothing of. We just listen to the people that are in control, and then we go by whatever it is that they state. I think it might be 2 Corinthians. Let me see, 2 Corinthians. Yeah, 2 Corinthians 2 and 11. So Job 8 and 8 says that we must inquire of the former age. Sirach 5 and 15 said, be not ignorant unto anything, right? Whether it's little, whether it's small, whether it's great. Right. Let's see what 2 Corinthians says.
2 Corinthians 2 and 11, lest Satan should get an advantage of us.
So it's saying, don't be ignorant to anything, because guess what? Satan is going to get an advantage over us. For example, right now with this COVID-19 situation. It's crazy. A lot of people were, looking at it like it was something that came out of the blue. When this has been planned out by your enemy, our enemy, Esau, the devil, for years, for decades, right? That's what the Most High is saying. Lest Satan, go ahead.
Lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices.
We cannot be ignorant of his devices. As a nation, according to Hosea 4 and 6, it says, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. It says we lack the knowledge. The Most High says, you know what? You disapprove of the law. You don't even consider it. So therefore, I'm not going to consider you nor your children. Imagine that situation, because that's really what we're going to talk about tonight. So again, America's memorial or Memorial Day or Israel's memorials. Because remember, again, what is a memorial? A memorial is something that, keeps a remembrance alive, such as speech, ceremony, a day, a celebration, right? So it's for us to commemorate, to keep that particular event in history alive, right? So let's go back to Job 8 and 8. I'll read it from the top.
Job 8 and 8. For inquire, I pray thee, of the former age, and prepare thyself to the search of their fathers.
Go ahead.
For we are but of yesterday.
Remember that. A lot of us think that, it's just about us, it's all about us, but we are of yesterday. Whatever we're here paying these debts in oppression, getting gunned down in the streets due to our forefathers' iniquities. Iniquity, transgression, sin, and so forth, right? Is judgment, righteous, just judgment that the Most High said he was going to place upon our people if we don't obey his law, if we didn't consider the way his oracles and his government, right? So it says, for we are but of yesterday. Go ahead.
And know nothing, because our days upon earth are a shadow.
Exactly. So it's necessary that we search of our past, of our history. If we don't search of our history, then guess what? We're not going to have a mission. We're not going to have no goals. We're not going to have a vision of what it is that we need to reach, or even a goal of why we're even alive. Imagine how the enemy treats us. They call us every byword in the book, right? Yeah. All the negative stuff.
In and out.
Right? And then one of the main things is minorities. Just being called a minority, being called nothing, less than nothing. Imagine that. What is that going to do mentally to an individual, to a nation? So we feel like, having a little bit of money, that's like us making it or whatever. Having a little bit of fame, that's us being up there. The Most High says, nah, you are a special people. To you, it states in Romans chapter 9, was given the oracles, was given the covenant, was given the promises, and even the service of the Most High and of Yahweh Shai. So imagine that. But they call us nothing. They call us illegal aliens. They call us wetbacks, minorities, porch monkeys, and so forth. The list goes on. Even black. Black, when you look up the definition, is nothing but negative stuff, right? Indian, a savage. And then we glorify these terms and we put them in, in our culture as if it's something positive or something to look up to, right? So let's get from there, go to Romans 15 and 4. Just remember, again, this Bible is for this particular reason that we're going to read about right now. Romans 15 and verse 4.
Romans 15:4.
Go ahead.
For whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning, that we through patience and comfort of the scriptures might have hope.
Imagine that. It says that the only hope is going to come through patience and comfort of these scriptures. That is, if we do our part. It's not just going to come for us reading it, from us looking in the book. Nah. It says that we need to partake. We need actions. Faith without works is dead. So we need to be in the book and then understand the book, understand these precepts, and then bring them to life. That's why it's necessary to go back and search of our history. It says, for whatsoever things were written before, right, aforetime, were written for our learning, that we through patience and comfort of the scriptures might have hope. Without this knowledge, we just continue to be victims and soft targets out in the world. There's no roots. It's like a plant with no roots, a tree with no roots. We don't know where we come from, so guess what? We're not going to have any goals. We're not going to have no visions as far as what we need to do and how do we need to do it to accomplish, the things that we need to do to be able to accomplish those goals. So from there, let's go to, let me get 1 Corinthians. 1 Corinthians 10 and verse 11.
1 Corinthians 10 and verse 11. Now all these things happen unto them for examples, and they were written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the world are come.
Exactly. So it says that everything that happened in this book to the different individuals that it happened to, it was written for examples, for our example, right? So we could go ahead and be corrected by the things that are found in these precepts and these chapters. So if we don't take heed to it, if we don't take, if we take it for granted and we don't see the importance or recognize that there's a heavy importance in it, then guess what? We're going to continue that cycle of oppression, that cycle that's going to, end up in a gruesome death or incarcerated. At the end of the day, that Deuteronomy 28:15 down all the way to 68. Cursed condition, right? So let's go from there and let's get into it. We could start off with, let me see. Let me pull this out. Go to Passover, right? Some of the memorials. Before that, actually, go to Sirach. Go to Sirach 49 and verse 10.
Sirach 49 and verse 10. And of the 12 prophets, let the memorial be blessed, and let their bones flourish again out of their place. For they comforted Jacob and delivered them by assured hope.
I wonder what that means, huh? Sounds heavy. So it says, and of the 12 prophets, let the memorial be blessed. So it didn't say, celebrate the memorial of the U.S. of A. or whatnot, Memorial Day, as they call it. No, in the scriptures it says, and of the 12 prophets, let the memorial be blessed, and let their bones flourish again out of their place, for they comforted Jacob. Remember, Jacob is you. Jacob is us, the 12 tribes of Israel, right? Okay. And they've delivered them by a sure hope. So remember, when the scripture says, I think it's Isaiah 8 and 20, none of them shall fail, right? Is that what it is? Let's look into it right quick. The book of Isaiah 8 and verse 20. Yeah. No, that's not it. Basically, I don't know it off the top.
I think it's 34:16.
What is it?
34:16.
The what, So 34, yeah, there you go. Seek ye. Go ahead and get that out.
Isaiah 34 and verse 16. Seek ye out of the book of the Lord and read. No one of these shall fail, none shall want her mate, for my mouth it hath commanded, and his spirit it hath gathered them.
Exactly. So that's what it means right here when we read about it at the end. It says, and deliver them by a sure hope. So the Most High is letting you know right here. It says, if you look into this book and read and really meditate and take heed to what's in here and understand the warnings that I'm giving you and know how to move about, your life, then guess what? You're gonna succeed, according to Joshua 1:8, right? You're gonna be successful. Otherwise, you're gonna have the opposite of that, right? So that's why it's necessary for us to go into the book and have a remembrance of all the different things, all the great things our forefathers have done. Not only in the scriptures, because remember the Bible says in Revelations that the earth was gonna help the woman. So the earth, archaeology, history was gonna help Israel. So along with that, we got to look into things like atlases, archaeological findings, right, and historical events to be able to prove what the Most High said that was going to happen, whether it was positive or negative to his people, his chosen people, right? So then let's go from there. Let's go to Exodus to understand why is it that Passover is kept. You go to Exodus 2. And read 11 is what I want, but you go up a little higher. Read verse 8.
Exodus 2:8.
So remember, we here in Egypt, after we were given the land of Goshen through an individual that we should always remember, Joseph, which was the reason why Egypt was even the successful nation that it was through one of our forefathers, Joseph, one of the 12 sons of Jacob. Through him was the world pretty much saved, because he was shown a prophecy, right, by the Most High that there was going to be 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine. So through that understanding, the brother was able to make a wise decision and be able to store up enough substance to be able to live through those 7 years of famine. Not only Egypt, but everybody else that was surrounding that perimeter, which pretty much was the whole world back at that time. So he was a great individual. He was in the land of Egypt. He was pretty much the second hand to the Pharaoh, right? So this that we're going to read about right here is a Pharaoh that followed that particular one that was in the days of Joseph, and this is what happened. Go ahead.
Exodus 2:8. And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Go and..."
1:8, Salakia.
Oh, Exodus 1:8. Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, "Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply. And it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land.
Go ahead.
Therefore they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramses.
Go ahead.
But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew. And they were grieved because of the children of Israel.
Go ahead.
And the Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with rigor. And they made their lives bitter with hard bondage, in mortar and in brick, and in all manner of service in the field. All their service wherein they made them serve was with rigor.
You see that? So that's the reason why we went and we were crying out to the Most High. We were crying out to the Most High to be able to be delivered from that rigorous condition. Because out of envy and out of hate, instead of us, because remember when we went up in there, we went into Goshen, right? Goshen was the best, the most fertile land in that whole region, in that country, in Egypt. So then when this Pharaoh comes about, he's looking at it like, you know what? We can't allow that to continue, because then eventually Israel's going to overthrow us. Like any other time when you look at Israel being afflicted by these other nations, right? So then what happened was Moses comes in the picture. The Most High tells Moses that through him, he was going to, use him to deliver his people. So then if we go to Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy 12.
And which?
Salakia 16. 16, go ahead, 16 and 1.
Deuteronomy 16 and 1. Observe the month of Abib and keep the Passover unto the Lord thy God. For in the month of Abib, the Lord thy God brought thee forth out of Egypt by night.
So this is the reason why we got to commemorate this day. On the first day, on the first month, the 14th day at even, which is the same as the 15th day, right at the beginning of the 15th day. The Most High says, observe the month of Abib and keep the Passover. Why? Because this is the time that he delivered us out of the land of our enemies, the land of Egypt, by night, right? So it states in this chapter right here all the things that you need to do to be able to partake of the Passover correctly, which we just celebrated, 2 months ago? 2.5 months ago?
Yeah,
well, yeah, almost 3 months ago. Yeah, 2.5. So this is one of the memorials of Israel, right? So it's for us to remember these days, right? After this, after the memorial of Passover, we go ahead and read about it, and I can't get into everything. That's why you need to go and really study and read in the scriptures, as Revelations 1 and 3 states. But another thing that happened right after this, because I know, as you guys know, would be the memorial of Simon following that, right? But the memorial of Simon, was it right after Passover? This particular Passover, the Exodus?
I mean, not exactly right after, but it follows. So we just celebrated it.
No, I know, but I'm saying chronologically, as far as time is concerned. We come out of Egypt. When did the memorial of Simon take place? There was many captivities. We coming out of Egypt, we had to go through in the land of Canaan, which is Israel. After the land of Canaan and Israel, we go into captivity. The northern kingdom goes into captivity with the Assyrians, by the Assyrians. Then Babylon, the southern kingdom. Then you have the Persians and the Medes. Then you have the Grecians. So the memorial of Simon doesn't come but hundreds of years after this particular Exodus, the first Passover, right? So let's see what other things we are to remember. And not just as far as a celebration in a sense, but just so we actually have an idea of what it is to be an Israelite. Like a lot of brothers always talk about, like, it's not just about turning up and drinking or whatever, having a good time that particular feast day, but beyond that, throughout on a daily basis, we got to remember all the things that our people have done. Not only the people in this book, but also the people that you hardly hear anything about. Because guess what? History is not geared towards our understanding, right? Towards to educate us. It's to keep us down at the bottom, at least the education of this country. But that's what the Most High says. You got to seek. You got to search. Job 8 and 8 stated that, right? So we need to go beyond whatever, God out here in the States. Because remember, ever since we were introduced into this education system, it's always been to control us, to keep us at the bottom, and to pretty much feed us lies. So it's necessary that we go beyond that. That's not going to get us anywhere. So beyond the Passover, the next thing that happened, we were going through pretty much the Transjordan conquest or whatnot, which was led by Joshua and the brother Caleb. When you look at the brother Joshua and Caleb, we go into Joshua 1 to also understand what the Most High gave unto these individuals. So you go ahead and get,
The stones?
Yeah, now the stones is cool, but I want to get this part before. Read 1 and verse 6.
Joshua 1 and verse 6.
Start at 5.
Verse 5. There shall not any man be able to stand before thee all the days of thy life. As I was with Moses, so will I be with thee.
So the Most High is letting Joshua know, like, look, Moses had his time. He did his thing. Now the power is going to be given to you. You're going to be the lead. You're going to be the head leading Israel into the next level, into the next conquering, right? So he says, as I was with Moses, I will be with thee. Go ahead.
I will not fail thee.
A while ago, Romans 15:4. Also that we read in right here where it says, and deliver them by a sure hope. So the Most High is telling you, look, as long as you do what I'm telling you to do, what I require from thee, I will not forsake thee. I will not fail thee. Go ahead. But this is what we got to have. Go ahead and read verse 6.
Be strong and of good courage.
Be weak.
Be strong and of good courage.
See, so cannot be within us. We cannot be weak. We cannot be doubtful. We got to be rooted and understand that, look, our nation is great. Our power, there is no power above the Most High Yahweh. There is no more powerful nation in the world, how, as far as, how the nation of Israel has been ever since inception, ever since, our brother Jacob, because you look at Jacob as well. Jacob was tried before he even was able to get a rib, before he was blessed with the first child, right? But he has a history, because that's another thing that we got to remember. Uncle did him dirty, had him serve, 14 years?
Pretty much.
And then sent them out with the speckle, what do you call it, cattle. And he made it work, just to show you the power that we have. Look at all the oppression that we've been through, and we still make it work. And then we got all the other nations envy us, because they want to be like us. They want to get down like us. So for example, soul food, right? Just look at food in general that Israel has. Everybody wants to be, wants to jog the styles that we have, no matter what it is. But just something as simple as food, showing you how the Most High said in the New Testament that we are that flavor. We are the salt of the world. So just showing you these different things we got to remember, because look, no matter what, Israel always makes it work. And brother Jacob, man, that's why his name was transferred and switched to Israel. Yasharallah, right? Prince of Power. Think about that. Your forefather's name is, and is what it represents, a prince of power. Yashar Allah. Imagine that. So that's what the Most High says. Read verse 6 again.
Be strong and of good courage, for unto this people shalt thou divide for an inheritance the land, which I swear unto their fathers to give them.
Exactly. So the Most High says, look, it's already been sworn. Yep. You got to make it happen. No matter what you think, no matter what how you feeling, you got to make these things happen. Like I said, I'm going to try to cover a whole lot, so I'm just giving you pretty much a summary. You guys could go into it, and, you need to, so you could understand your history. But this is coming out of Egypt, coming out of the wilderness, going en route to the promised land, which is the land of Canaan, the land of Israel, right? So this is our brother Joshua and Caleb leading us through this mission. So some of the things that happened here was, I'm gonna read off this atlas. Let me get it right quick. So it says right here, conquests east of the Jordan. Let me get the scriptures to stay. Let me get Joshua 8, and let me get verse 1.
Joshua chapter 8 and verse 1. And the Lord said unto Joshua, fear not, neither be thou dismayed. Take all the people of war with thee, and arise and go up to Ai. See, I have given into thy hand the king of Ai, and his people, and his city, and his land. And thou shalt do to Ai and her king as thou didst unto Jericho and her king. Only the spoil thereof and the cattle thereof shall ye take for an prey unto yourselves. Lay thee an ambush for the city behind it.
All right, so I'm going to read about those two accounts real brief right here. This is the IVP Concise Atlas of Bible History. This is page 42. It's titled, The Conquest of Canaan, Jericho, and Ai, right? So I'm going to go into the conquest of Jericho first, because that's another memorial. That's a great memorial. When you celebrate the memorial blowing of the trumpets, sometimes you might not really understand what that signifies. Well, you know, the significance of the blowing of the trumpets was many things, such as, you know, we would blow the trumpet as an alarm, right, to go to war, to bring the camp together, to assemble, right? Also, you use it as a musical instrument. And there's a couple of other, meanings behind the memorial of the trumpet, or just the trumpet itself, right? But when you look at in regards to the conquest of Jericho, this is what happened. It says, the conquest of Jericho is undoubtedly the most famous incident in the whole campaign of Joshua, right? Joshua had his army march around the city once a day for 6 days. 7 priests blowing trumpets marched before the Ark of the Covenant. Then they returned to camp. On the 7th day, they marched around the city 7 times. When the trumpet sounded, Rahab and her family. So even with that, when you look at Rahab, right, the prostitute, Rahab, when the spies were sent in, this is what Rahab did, just to show you the power of Israel. Go ahead and read Joshua 2, and let me get verse 8.
Joshua 2:8. And before they were laid down, she came up unto them upon the roof. And she said unto the men, I know that the Lord hath given you the land, and that your terror is fallen upon us, and that all the inhabitants of the land faint because of you.
Imagine that. This is another nation, right? This is Rahab, and see them, right? Go ahead, read.
For we have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea for you when you came out of Egypt, and what ye did unto the 2 kings of the Amorites.
So imagine, these are a couple of things that they had already done. What else?
That were on the other side of the Jordan, Sihon and Og, whom ye utterly destroyed.
Go ahead.
As soon as we had heard these things, our hearts did melt.
Hearts did what?
Did melt.
Imagine fear and just trust in the Most High. Because imagine, this is how the other nations are feeling. This is what they're supposed to feel. That's the way we gain our respect. But imagine now. It's crazy. You look at the streets out here. We're in South Central, right? And you see Esau walking up and down with no issues. Nobody coming at him any type of way. 1992, that wasn't happening. But imagine, through just thinking, you know, that we all are one people, how the Christians and just our people in general feel out there. God created everybody, so therefore, you know, he loves everybody. And all kinds of other chapters and verses in the Bible. So this is the fear that these nations had before, back in the day. Even not too long ago, they still had this fear. That there's a unity between so-called browns and blacks, so-called natives, Native Americans, Indians, or what you want to call African Americans. Esau gets shook. So the first thing that they want to do is the first thing that they did when they got to the Americas. Divide and conquer. Divide, they already conquered. They continue to divide so we don't come together and be able to overtake the system. So that's what, you know, Rahab right here is saying, like, look, as soon as we heard these stories, they were probably already good enough with the stories of Egypt. But then they said, and then we heard how you did the Amorites. It says, as soon as we heard these stories, our hearts did melt. Go ahead.
Neither did there remain any more courage in any man because of you.
Imagine that. Go ahead.
For the Lord your God, he is God in heaven above and in earth beneath.
Just really meditate on that. While we out here trying to get weapons and formulate certain plans, how many of us as a nation, not Israelites, but as a nation, as far as I mean, not Israelites, not, you know, law-abiding Israelites, just Israelites, period. How many of us ever consider that with the power of the Most High, we are unstoppable? We cannot be defeated by anybody. Hardly any of us, right? Why? Because we don't have this understanding. When the other nations have known this from the jump, they look at it like, look, if they on point with the Most High, you know what? It'd be foolish for us to go against them. She said, Salakia, neither did there remain any more courage in any man. Because what? Because of you. Go ahead.
For the Lord your God, he is God in heaven above and in earth beneath.
All right, so when you go down and read the whole story, it talks about, she was supposed to put this scarlet on her window, and whoever was in the household, it didn't matter if it was her family, but if they were in the household, they were going to be spared. If any of her family members were outside of the household, they were going to be done away with. So that's what you read about. That's what I read about right here, sparing only Rahab and her family. Then this is the setback and eventual victory of Ai. Listen to our brother Joshua, right? This chief leader of Israel, right? This captain of the nation. Look at how he operated. When you read books like The Art of War, all these things, they have gotten from our people. When you read about Hannibal, which a lot of people say, which most likely I do believe as well, that he was an Israelite. But if you guys look at Hannibal and the way he used to operate, they had to study that brother for a minute to be able to conquer him, to be able to defeat him, right? But look at it comes, it's in the bloodline. It's in the bloodline of Israel. This is what Joshua says. It says, Joshua then moved his army up into the hills. They came upon a town called Ai, a Hebrew term meaning ruin. Selecting 3,000 men to attack the town, Joshua lost about 36 men. A reason for the defeat was advance. A certain Achan, which you guys should know the story, had taken some of the spoils of Jericho against the Lord's specific orders. Achan and his family were stoned to death, and Joshua again attacked Ai. So remember, a lot of people were dying because of Achan's transgression, Achan's disobedience, showing you again how vital it is for us to be in complete accordance with the ordinances of the Most High. If not, he says, I'm not going to fight for you. You gotta be 100 with me and follow through. If not, I'm not going to back you up. So then it says, at night, Joshua set an ambush behind the town. In the morning, the men of Ai attacked Joshua's main army. Listen, in the morning, the men of Ai attacked Joshua's main army. But remember, Joshua set up an ambush, right? Who let themselves be driven back. The ambushing force then rushed toward the capture and destroy the city. And if you guys get a chance, just look that up. The way he did it, it was so strategic, right? It says, I'm going to read pretty much the way he laid it out. It says, phase 1, the Israelite main force moves from Jericho to attack Ai. The second one, it says, another force advances under cover of darkness and conceals itself between Ai and Bethel. Phase 2, the Israelite main force feigns retreat, and all the men of Ai and Bethel break out in pursuit. After receiving a signal from Joshua, the concealed force attacks and burns the undefended town, which, if you do look at Hannibal, that's kind of the way he operated, which is the only way that they were able to defeat him. After, I forgot his name, but there was this Roman individual that studied him, and he did basically the same thing. As Hannibal was attacking Italy, they went down and attacked his hometown, right? So it's just showing you the certain ways that Israel has always operated in war is something that the Most High gave to our people from the jump. And as we're going to touch a couple of other incidents in history, which, they were pretty much operating the same way. It says, as the men of Ai see the smoke rising from their town, the main Israelite force turns to face their pursuers. So at first they're acting like they're running from them, right? And it says, then they face their pursuers. The ambushing force attacks the men of Ai from the rear. So pretty much they were, hit from left and the right side, the front and the rear, right? So Joshua's army inflicts total defeat on the enemy. All praises to the Most High. And that's the way we used to operate. When you go into Judges, for example, you got Deborah. Get Judges 4. This is a sister that was guided by the Most High to go ahead and defeat the enemy forces. Go ahead, because remember, in the days of Judges, there was pretty much Israel was out of order. There was no king over Israel, so it was a lot of chaos. When you read in Judges, you always had Israel acting a fool, repenting, and then going back into doing the same thing. Go ahead, read Judges 4 and verse 12.
Judges 4 and verse 12. And they showed Sisera that Barak, the son of Abinoam, was gone up to Mount Tabor. And Sisera gathered together all his chariots, even 900 chariots of iron, and all the people that were with them, from Harosheth of the Gentiles unto the river of Kishon. And Deborah said unto Barak, Up, for this is the day in which the Lord had delivered Sisera into thine hand.
So you see, Deborah already had the understanding and the blessing of the Most High. She was already told, like, look, this is the day where we got to move. We got to operate. We got to run this operation because this is the day the Most High is going to deliver the enemy forces into our hands. Go ahead.
Is not the Lord gone out before thee? So Barak went down.
But remember, there's a man leading this attack. His name is Barak. Go ahead.
So Barak went down from Mount Tabor, and 10,000 men after him. And the Lord discomfited Sisera and all his chariots and all his hosts with the edge of the sword before Barak, so that Sisera lighted down off his chariot and fled away on his feet. But Barak pursued after the chariots and after the hosts unto Harosheth of the Gentiles. And all the hosts of Sisera fell upon the edge of the sword, and there was not a man left. Howbeit Sisera fled away on his feet to the tent of Jael.
Let's jump down to verse 22.
Verse 22. And behold, as Barak pursued Sisera, Jael came out to meet him, and said unto him, Come, I will show thee the man whom thou seekest. And when he came into her tent, behold, Sisera lay dead, and the nail was in his temple.
So there's how Jael dealt with that individual. She put a nail through his temple, set him up real well. You can read the whole story on your own. But just to show you how Israel was operating, no fear, right? They were about defending the nation, abiding by the laws of the Most High, and doing exactly what the Most High asked from us to be able to be that ruling power. So this is another account, in the book of Judges, another memorial that we should remember, seeing that, no matter what nation it was that came against us while we were in one accord with the Most High and his laws, there was nothing that they would be able to do against us. So another account is the battle of Gideon. Get Judges 7. Judges 7. You can read 1.
Judges 7 and 1. Then Jerubbaal, who is Gideon, and all the people that were with him rose up early and pitched beside the well of Harod, so that the host of the Midianites was on the north side of them, by the hill of Moreh, in the valley. And the Lord said unto Gideon, The people that are with thee are too many for me to give the Midianites into their hands, lest Israel vaunt themselves against me, saying, Mine own hands have saved me.
Imagine that. That's another thing that we have as a nation. That's a big issue amongst us. We always want to claim victory. We always want to set ourselves like we're the gods that make everything happen. No, the Most High said, look, that's too many. If I allow that to go down, then all Israel's going to be like, yeah, because of us, guess what? We gained this victory. So the Most High narrows it down to, read down to verse 5. Jump down to 5.
Now therefore go to proclaim in the ears of the people, saying...
Verse 5?
Oh, verse 5. He brought down the people unto the water, and the Lord said unto Gideon, Everyone that lappeth of the water with his tongue, as a dog lappeth, him shalt thou set by himself. Likewise, everyone that bowed down upon his knees to drink. And the number of them that lapped, putting their hand to their mouth, were 300 men. But all the rest of the people bowed down upon the knees to drink water.
Exactly. So he's saying from the 1,000 or the individuals that you had, he narrowed it down to 300 men. So he says with these 300 men, you're going to be able to go ahead and reach this victory, right? So we go ahead and get, let me get straight to it. Go to chapter 8, verse 4.
Judges 8 and verse 4. And Gideon came to Jordan and passed over, he and the 300 men that were with him, faint yet pursuing them.
Go ahead.
And he said unto the men of Succoth, Give, I pray you, loaves of bread unto the people that follow me, for they be faint, and I am pursuing after Zebah and Zalmunna, king of Midian.
Mm-hmm. Let's jump down to, go to 18.
Verse 18. Then he said unto Zebah and to Zalmunna, What manner of men were they whom ye slew at Tabor? And they answered, As thou art, so were they. Each one resembled the children of a king.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, They were my brethren, even the sons of my mother. As the Lord liveth, if ye had saved them alive, I would not slay you.
Go ahead.
And he said unto Jether, his firstborn, Up and slay them. But the youth drew not his sword, for he feared, because he was yet a youth.
Mm-hmm.
Then Zebah and Zalmunna said, Rise thou and fall upon us, for as the man is, so is his strength. And Gideon arose and slew Zebah and Zalmunna, and took away the ornaments that were on their camels' necks.
Go ahead.
Then the men of Israel said unto Gideon, Rule thou over us, both thou and thy sons sons also, for thou hast delivered us from the hand of Midian.
Exactly. Go ahead. Finish that one.
And Gideon said unto them, I will not rule over you, neither shall my son rule over you. The Lord shall rule over you.
You see that? You see the humility in our warriors? Like, nah. I did what the Most High required of me. I did my part. But I'm not going to rule over thee. The Most High rules over all of us, right? So just showing you how these things were so necessary for us to be able to obtain victories, right? So this is another one, Gideon. Then we could go and cover Samson versus the Philistines. You can find that in 1 Samson 4:22, right? But one of the things I wanted to bring out was the history, the Memorial Day history. And I think you got that little article with it, huh?
Yeah, which one do you want?
Just bring out and read the as far as who was the first people to pretty much keep Memorial Day, or the origin of Memorial Day.
Oh, right, got you. I like that one. I'll get that right now.
Which is off of the History Channel.
Yeah. All right, let me find a good paragraph to start.
The second paragraph's pretty good.
You want the second? All right. This is from the History Channel website.com, and its article is called One of the Earliest Memorial Day Ceremonies Was Held by Freed Slaves. Paragraph 2. Several towns and cities across America claim to have observed their own earlier versions of Memorial Day or Decoration Day as early as 1866. The earlier name is derived from the fact that decorating graves was and remains a central activity of Memorial Day. But it wasn't until a remarkable discovery in a dusty Harvard University archive in the late 1990s that historians learned about a Memorial Day commemoration organized by a group of freed black slaves less than a month after the Confederacy surrendered in 1865.
Mm-hmm. So there's a couple of videos you guys could look up, and even a professor, he is interviewed by a sister, and then it breaks down right there that the reason why this came about, the Decoration Day, and I think you probably go to that paragraph, the next one, where it's talking about where they had them captives, basically. You don't have that part?
Not that I remembered. I can scroll through it.
Let me see. Let me pull it up right quick. Probably hear the audio. Give me a quick second. Let me see.
I know like the general surmise of it, but specific paragraph. But you went. I don't know if she went.
I'll play it right quick.
Okay.
It's the same thing off the History Channel.
Final months of the Civil War, the Confederate Army converted a horse racing track into an outdoor prison for
You can hear
Union
that, sis?
soldiers. Close to 260 men died there and were buried in a mass grave. At the end of the war, in an expression of reverence and gratitude, 28 African American workers gave them proper burials. They inscribed above their final resting place, "Martyrs of the Race Course." 2 weeks later, thousands of freed slaves, school children, and Union soldiers made a procession to the cemetery to pay tribute to their sacrifice. They laid flowers on the graves, listened to speeches, and picnicked on the grass. This informal observance, and others like it, would evolve over time into the holiday we know as Memorial Day. On this day, we remember and honor all of those who have died from all branches of service in conflict.
So that's the history on it, right? But like everything else, like Christopher Columbus discovering America, that's never shared with the within the education system that we attend. But even then, it shows you, and there's a little more, it's deeper than that. These brothers were left, and they were left pretty much to themselves. All these bodies, I forgot how many, they just mentioned it, died, and these brothers were left, they went back to get these bodies that were thrown in the trench and give them proper burial, kind of like, the story of Tobit. So just showing you the spirit of Israel. But then, none of this is ever shared to the public, and all you know about Memorial Day is, that Confederate flag waving out in the South. And even then, our people fought so many battles with Esau, but at the same time, we weren't considered anything. That's another thing I would like, to touch on is like, for example, the 10 tribers. A lot of our people, and not only the 10 tribers, but both Southern and Northern Kingdom, we joined the military because guess what? It's either that or get you a job, right? They give us a false idea that if we go and join the military that we're going to be taken care of at the end of the day once we return. But as you have seen, that's not the case. If you even come back, you come back with PTSD, you come back with missing limbs, you come back mentally, devastated. And then you come back to a system that's not going to take care of you. You come back unless, there's a couple of exceptions, but for the most part, it's either gang banging, slanging dope, getting you a job, or going to the military. At least back in the 90s. Now you got, sports, basketball, baseball, and so forth, and rap or whatnot. But back in the day, that was like an option. Either you go to, you work, you complete your education, get in debt, going through, the system, colleges, or you go to war. Yeah. But even worse than that, a lot of our so-called illegal brothers, undocumented brothers and sisters, they go because if you go and serve the military, you're supposed to get a citizenship. That doesn't happen either. You're good enough to go fight for the country, for the nation, right? But when you come back, they're like, nah. Some of the soldiers have even gotten deported after coming back from serving in the military. But just to show you, it's like nothing has changed. They use us, because that's what the scripture said. Let's go to that scripture, as a matter of fact, in Sirach. And this is the oldest trick, and I'd be tripping out how our people constantly fall for it. It's like, look, the Most High said it right here, and then we still fall victims to this, no matter how many times it happens to us. It's Sirach 101, 13 and verse, you can start at 14. Verse 4.
Sirach 13 and verse 4. If thou be for his profit, he will use thee. But if thou have nothing, he will forsake thee.
Go ahead.
If thou have anything, he will live with thee. Yea, he will make thee bear, and will not be sorry for it.
Isn't that what they do? No matter what it is, because imagine, back in the day with the white gold, the cotton, right? It was the same thing, the sugar cane plantations, the yucca plantations, or what they call it, any plantation, tobacco. any plantation. As long as you are for his benefit, he will use you. And these days, nowadays, they'll act like they're nice with you. But as long as you are, of no value to them, then they get rid of you. It says, and he will also leave thee. At the end of the day, he's going to leave you bare and not be sorry for it. So go ahead, read 6 as a matter of fact.
If he have needed thee, he will deceive thee and smile upon thee and put thee in hope. He will speak thee fair and say, what wantest thou? And he will shame thee by his meats until he have drawn thee dry twice or thrice.
Imagine that. Not once, not twice, but maybe even 3 times. And you know Esau, even more than that. Go ahead.
And at the last he will laugh thee to scorn. Afterward, when he seeth thee, he will forsake thee and shake his head at thee.
Think about the buffalo soldiers, if you know any history in regards to that. Esau has always used our people to defeat his enemies, which half the time is our own people, right? And then at the end of the day, they don't even consider us. I mean, why would they, right? He says he's going to use you, abuse you, then toss you out. And then even laugh at you and make a mockery out of you. So that's why it's necessary, like Job 8:8 stated, we got a search of our forefathers. We got a search of our foretimes, of the past, to be able to know how to conduct ourselves, to be able to know who are we to trust and who is it that we better stay away from. We need to know our enemy. A lot of our people think we out here and that there's no enemies. But on a daily, you're being oppressed and you're being persecuted by a particular set of people, a particular nation. So how are you going to say that there is no enemy? The Most High states it. Go to Psalms 83 right quick, just so you can see all the enemies that the Most High lists right here, that David listed in regards to all the enemies of the Most High. Go ahead, Psalms 83. You can start at 2.
Psalms 83:2. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones.
Imagine that. You got Bill Gates. You got the President Trump, right? A joke. And you have Bill Gates out here acting like he's the damn president of the United States nowadays. He's controlling the education, the agriculture. He's controlling the health, right? System, economy, pretty much everything. And it's not only him, but he has a whole, a group of people working with him, which is nothing new. When you look at the elite and their plans, this has been something that they have planned since the 1700s. And not, obviously before that, when you read Genesis, talking about that perpetual hate that Esau was gonna, that Esau has towards, Israel, towards us. So it lets you know there's recordings and footage or archives, documentation showing you what the plan is. And you hear we in 2020 right now. While you at home thinking, things gonna get better, waiting for things to go back to normal, things ain't going back to normal. That's what the Most High says right here. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. But we still out here thinking everything's gonna be all right. It's just sitting back, waiting. Waiting for what? We cannot wait. We can't just sit back and wait. We read it right here in Sirach right now. As long as he has a profit for us, as long as we benefit him, then he's going to use us. Once he gets what he wants, guess what? He's going to get rid of us. These are things you really got to consider, Israel, and really meditate on. What is it that I need to do to be able to be ahead of these damn, the ways of this devil? 2 Corinthians 2:11 told us not to be, Sirach 5:15 told us not to be ignorant. And then 2 Corinthians tells us that we got to know his devices so we could, be 10 steps ahead of him. And it starts by knowing our history, by knowing these laws, and making sure that we living by these laws, right? So let's go from there. So that was just a quick, actually not. I'm finished. Go ahead.
They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance.
Go ahead.
They have consulted together one with one consent, and they are confederate against thee.
So they are confederate against thee. Imagine that. Even the Confederate flag, the Confederation. Everything. You look at NATO, everything. They are united. They are a union, an alliance against who? Against us. No matter what it is that this world partakes of, is to destroy us. Population control. Who's it geared towards? It's so-called blacks and so-called Latinos, so-called Native Americans, right? Go ahead.
The tabernacles of Edom.
The who?
Of Edom.
The tabernacles of Edom, and who else?
And the Ishmaelites.
So you got the white people, you got the Arabians, right? Go ahead.
Of Moab.
The Chinese.
And the Hagarenes.
Your Africans.
Gebal.
And all those other ones are, pretty much different African nations. Then you got who else?
Ammon.
Japanese.
Amalek.
Your his grandchild, Esau's grandchild, the so-called Jewish people.
The Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre.
So pretty much is showing you the whole world is against you. And the sad thing about it, that even some Israelites are against our own people. Because you read about it in the book of Maccabees. You read about it in the book of Maccabees. You read about it in all the, insurrections that there was against the Confederacy or against the South. I think Isaiah was talking about it during Simon, how our people, before they went to war against the enemy, they made sure that they took out the wicked Israelites. Just think about it. If you allow these Israelites to be around, how does a nation infiltrate another? They always use people on the inside, right? So that's why it's necessary for you to be vigilant and know who's around you. Most High said it in his book. Look, before they went to war, they made sure that they destroyed the weak ass Israelites that were down with the enemy. Things like that. Those type of accounts you also find them during the Haitian revolts. Our brothers went and took out these indigenous or these black people, black ancestors that were willing to fight for the so-called white man. They're like, nope. First we're gonna take them out, and then we're gonna get rid of the heathens, right? So to touch on a couple, I know the brother got a couple of things he's gonna pull up. I'm gonna just list a couple of names and give you a brief history of the different individuals that have fought for the nation of Israel. But also, before I get ahead of myself, let's go into these scriptures, all right? Because what the scripture is saying right here in Sirach 49:10, it talks about the 12 prophets, right? So the 12 prophets is the individuals that you guys know, the books of Hosea, Joel, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi, right? So go to the book of Hosea 1. Because these are the things that the Most High was always warning us about to be able to make it through. I'm going to go ahead and read the scripture again. It says 49:10 in the book of Sirach, Ecclesiasticus. And of the 12 prophets, let the memorial be blessed, and let their bones flourish again out of their place, for they comforted Jacob and delivered them by assured hope. So let's get Hosea 1, verse 6.
Hosea 1:6. And she conceived again and bare a daughter. And God said unto him, call her name Lo-ruhamah, for I will no more have mercy upon the house of Israel.
I will what?
I will no more have mercy upon the house of Israel.
So imagine this. If you guys haven't read the history, it's funny. I seen some Jakes talking some mess the other day about, the Indians can't be Israel because how would the indigenous people take the so-called blacks into slavery? Brothers say, what's funny, that it's not the first time it happens. It's even documented in the scriptures. Brothers want to fight about it and say, you crazy. That's not documented in the scriptures. Well, the book of Chronicles states otherwise, right? So just showing you, Deuteronomy 28:54, one of the curses was that the man that is tender among us was going to be evil. His eye was going to be evil toward his brother. So think about it. That's what I'm saying. It's so necessary for us to go into our history and really study before blabbering away nonsense. Because Because remember, the heart is deceitful above all things. It says in Thessalonians, prove all things. So it's necessary for us to prove all things. And what the scripture right here in Sirach was saying is that through these prophets, our salvation was pretty much assured. The hope was assured by these individuals, the 12 prophets of the Old Testament, right? The 12 small prophets. So it says right here, read that again, the last part.
But I will utterly take them away. You want me to read further?
Yeah,
up?
before that.
Call her name La Ruhama, for I will no more have mercy upon the house of Israel.
Imagine that. The Most High saying, I will no longer have mercy upon the house of Israel. That sounds terrible right there. But remember, the Most High is a just power. Go ahead.
But I will utterly take them away. But I will have mercy upon the house of Judah.
So at this time, if you know our history, Southern Kingdom was still abiding by the law. The Northern Kingdom was acting a fool. So the Most High is saying, look, I'm going to be done with the house of Israel. I'm not even going to consider them. But when it comes down to Judah, you know what? I'll have mercy upon Judah because they're still acting right. Go ahead.
But I will have mercy upon the house of Judah and will save them by the Lord their God, and will not save them by bow, nor by sword, nor by battle, by horses, nor by horsemen.
Exactly. So let's go from there. Go to chapter 4, verse 6. Actually, read verse 9.
Verse 9. And then said God, call his name Lo-Ami, for ye are not my people.
Man, imagine that. This is the Most High talking to Israel, talking to the Northern Kingdom. Go ahead.
And I will not be your God. Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, ye are not my people, there shall be said unto them, ye are the sons of the living
So
God.
that might confuse a couple people, right? But no, it doesn't. It shouldn't if you really study the history of the Most High, the history of Israel, the history of Israel. Because remember, the Most High says, I will be with you if you abide by my laws. When you don't, guess what? Proverbs tells you that. He's like, man, whenever you out here crying for help, I'm going to laugh at you. For dealing with me the way you dealt with me, guess what? I'm going to have the last laugh. While you out here trying to ask for help, I'm not going to hear it. Even in a further book, the Amos, it tells you, that he don't accept our what do you call it, our feast days, our offerings on these feast days, our music, none of that. He's like, I don't want to hear none of that crap. None of that, because if you're not according to these scriptures, guess what? I don't want to hear it. That's one thing that we got to consider, especially as a congregation, as a congregant. We got to really understand and understand those scriptures and really take heed to them. Because some of the times we be up in here having issues with brethren, having issues with our sisters, and thinking that the Most High is cool with us. In the book of John, it states, nope. If you don't care, and if you don't love, and if you don't have peace with your brother, then guess what? You're considered a murderer. And he says the Most High's love, it doesn't exist in you. Because if you cannot love your brethren, then how could you love somebody that you never even seen? Those are precepts in the book of John. I believe it's the second book of John. But it's showing you right there that the Most High says, look, I don't care for your offerings. I don't care for none of that. If you're not being obedient unto me, he says, I'm disowning you. But then he also states, then in the future, once you go through that, which I think is Deuteronomy 30 that talks about that. Actually, let's get that so we could not be confused. Yeah. Deuteronomy 30. Remember, there's things that we got to go through, that we got to live through. And that's what the book, all these minor prophets talk about.
1 through 4, maybe?
Yeah, go ahead and get that.
Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 1. And it shall come to pass, when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse.
The what?
The blessing and the curse.
So, the blessing and the curse, right? All these things got to come upon the nation of Israel. Go ahead.
Which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations whither the Lord thy God hath driven thee.
So it says no matter what country, what part of the world you in, these things are going to happen to you. You're not going to be able to get away from it. Once you call them to mind, no matter where it is that you are at that particular time, it says what?
and shall return unto the Lord thy God,
And return to these laws. Go ahead.
and shall obey his voice according to all that I commanded thee this day, thou and thy children, with all thine heart and with all thy soul,
Go ahead.
that then the Lord thy God will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations whither the Lord thy God hath scattered thee.
Exactly. So everything that we're going to read from Hosea down to Malachi, that's pretty much what they're saying. They're always reminding Israel on what it is that we failed at, and what is that the Most High requires from us to be able to be considered his chosen people again. Not that we're not his chosen people, but to be considered, part of the 1/3. It says, other than that, Amos talks about it, you will be done away with. But go ahead and get, was that it? Finish that? In,
Deuteronomy?
no, Hosea 1.
Hosea.
1 in, I think you were at verse 10.
11? You were 10 again? Okay. Hosea 1 and 10. Yet the number of
No,
the...
that was it. You
Okay.
did read it. Ye are the sons of the living God. So go from there, go to 3:23.
Hosea chapter 3.
So like I don't. What is it at 1? I think 23. Let me see. 2:23. 2:23.
In Hosea?
Yeah.
Hosea chapter 2, verse 23. And I will sow her unto me in the earth, and I will have mercy upon her that had not obtained mercy. And I will say to them which were not my people, thou art my people. And they shall say, thou art my God.
That's to show you exactly what we read about right now in Deuteronomy 30, right? So it's necessary for us to do what the Most High requires of us. But go and look at how he deals with us right here in Hosea 4 and 6.
Hosea chapter 4 and verse 6. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee, that thou shalt be no priest to me. Seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy God, I will also forget thy children.
So the prophet Hosea is reminding us, look, this is the reason why the Most High is not dealing with us. Because remember, these are different captivities that we're going through. Our people, if you're not abiding in the law, imagine just even us. When we don't read certain books, we forget about them. That's what the Most High through Joshua 1 and 8 says. You got to meditate day and night so we don't lose focus of what it is that our mission is. But this is what happened with Israel. When you read about, I forgot what feast was it. It's, I think, through Josiah. Jay Yashimai just covered it a while ago. He's talking about that it had been years since we didn't even know what the Bible was. We didn't even know what these scrolls were.
I think that was Hezekiah.
Oh, yeah, maybe Hezekiah. So, and then it shows you that Israel was like, man, what is this? Finally, they were like, oh, okay, you know what? These are the oracles of the Most High. These are the things. This is our history. So that's why all these prophets are necessary, because imagine us nowadays. We go and tell people, oh, you know what? You're the true Jew of the Bible. You're the chosen nation of the Most High. You are a Hebrew Israelite. They look at you like, you crazy. Same thing that was happening right here in these days. So the Most High is saying, look, since you disobeyed me and forsook me, I'm going to also forsake ye. You're not going to be no priest unto me. And also your children, I'm going to forget, right? So go from there, go to, read verse, well, that's pretty much, that's like from verse 6 down to 9. Go to Hosea 4 and 11.
Hosea 4 and 11. Whoredom and wine and new wine take away the heart.
Imagine that. That's the reason why we in the situation we in. That's the reason that Esau gives us what he gives us. He knows how to keep us under his control, under the dominion of Satan. Because the Most High says, whoredom and wine and new wine take away the heart. Think about that. That's why we got to be sober. We got to be vigilant. Don't mean we can't partake of some drink, but the Most High is telling you right here, look, if these things mix, and if you have this in your nation, guess what? Failure is ahead of, is what's going to overtake you, overshadow you at the end of the day. Because this is what you see. You see liquor stores. As soon as we get off the freeway, you got Figueroa, you got prostitution. Before that, you already got liquor stores. You got, weed shops and all that. All the way down to the church, You have liquor store right next to us and all this whoredom around us. Most High is saying, look, this will take away the heart. The mind is going to be set off and in another situation. It's not going to be geared towards doing the will of the Most High, but the complete opposite.
Part of Jeshurun waxing fat.
Yep, exactly. But how the brother brought out in Deuteronomy, it talks about, Jeshurun waxed fat. So they kicked and they got comfortable, and we what? We forgot the Most High, the pillar of our nation, right? The rock of our nation, and then we went whoring after other nations, right? We'll go to, and this is cold right here. Look, read verse 19.
Same chapter?
Yeah.
Verse 19 in Hosea chapter 4.
Read 14.
Chapter 14 in Hosea chapter 4. Verse 14 in Hosea
ahead,
chapter 4. I will not punish your daughters when they commit whoredom, nor your spouses when they commit adultery. For themselves are separated with whores, and they sacrifice with harlots. Therefore the people that doth not understand shall fall.
Imagine that. That's cold right there, because that used to be a judgment back in the day. It's supposed to be a judgment according to the law, according to the Torah, right? But Most High is like, look, whatever. The way you've been dealing with me, you know what? I'm not even going to punish your daughters when they commit whoredom, nor your spouses when they commit adultery. For themselves are separated with whores, and they sacrifice with harlots. Therefore the people that does not understand shall fall. That's what we have, even in this present time right now. Our people are out there committing fornication, adultery, daughters playing a whore, idolatry and all that. The Most High is like, look, at this time, he says, I'm not even going to deal with it. I'm going to let you be whatever it is, because guess what? Look at what it talks about in regards to the northern kingdom. Read 17.
Verse 17. Ephraim is joined to idols.
Start from 16. Look at how the Most High be talking, not mess, talking facts. Go ahead.
For Israel slideth back as a backsliding heifer.
Heifer, right?
Heifer, yeah.
Go ahead.
Now the Lord will feed them as a lamb in a large place.
Says we were backsliding heifers is what the Most High referred to the northern kingdom as, right? And then he says this in 17. Go ahead.
Ephraim is joined to idols. Let him alone.
He said that to the southern kingdom, like, look, just let them be, man. Whatever. They too far gone. Let them go through it. Remember, Deuteronomy 30 says we're going to go through all these curses, through the trials, through the tribulations, through getting punished, being destroyed by the nations. He says, look, they don't want to listen. That's how cold the Most High is, and that's how just the Most High is. He's like, look, I gave them fair warning. Let them be. They'll figure it out, or maybe they won't. But either way, let whatever's going to happen, right? So this is Hosea reminding us. And look at how bad it got. Go to 11 and 12 talks about, go to 11 and 5.
Hosea 11 and 5. He shall not return into the land of Egypt, but the Assyrian shall be his king.
So it's talking about the northern kingdom again. It says he shall not return into the land of Egypt, right? Because we were going to go into another captivity, but we were going to go to the Assyrians, right? It says they shall be his king. Go ahead.
Because they refuse to return.
Go ahead.
And the sword shall abide on his cities, and shall consume his branches, and devour them because of their own counsels.
Exactly. Due to our own counsels, instead of taking the counsel of the Most High, guess what? We're going to be destroyed by these nations, because it was something that was already prophesied. We always bring up Deuteronomy 28. Some people like to clown that that's all the Hebrew Israelites. No, that's the judgment. That's the contract. Either you abide and you're blessed, or you go against it and you are cursed. That's what all these prophets talk about. Go from there, go to, look at how bad it got. Go to 5.
Chapter 5.
Yeah, 5 and 13. Go back to 5 and 13.
Hosea 5 and 13. When Ephraim saw his sickness and Judah saw his wound, then Ephraim to the Assyrian and sent to King Jareb, yet he cannot heal you, nor cure you of your wound. For I will be unto Ephraim as a lion, and as a young lion to the house of Judah. Even I, will tear and go away. I will take away, and none shall rescue him.
So this is when Judah's already slipping up, right? So the Most High is like, look, none of you came to the Most High. Instead, you went and tried to ask, like Lamentations states, he's like, you out here asking for help from a nation that cannot help. So the Most High says, therefore, it says, for I will be unto Ephraim as a lion, and as a young lion to the house of Judah. Even I, will tear and go away. I will take away, and none shall rescue him. I will go and return to my place till they acknowledge their offense and seek my face in their affliction. They will seek me early. Come, and let us return unto the Lord, for he hath torn, and he will heal us. He hath smitten, and he will bind us up. So the Most High is showing you, like, look, you want to play with me? I'm going to show you exactly what it is. But look at, show you right here a time frame of how long we were going to be under these conditions. Go ahead and read 6 and 1.
Hosea 6 and 1. Come, and let us return unto the Lord, for he hath torn, and he will heal us. He hath smitten, and he will bind us up. After 2 days.
After what?
After 2 days.
And a day is how many years to the Most High?
1,000.
So 2 days is 2,000, right? So it says after 2,000 years, go ahead.
After 2 days will he revive us. In the third day he will raise us up, and we shall live in his sight.
So imagine, that's where we at right now, Israel. We in that third day, right? Because it's 2,000 years have passed, right? We almost there. That's why things is accelerating the way they are right now. It's moving, at a fast pace. But this is showing you. You might read the Bible, it's like, oh, all of that happened already. No, it's still happening. That's why it's necessary for us to be able to understand these scriptures, to be able to understand where we at. At the end of the day, our duty has always been the same, to be obedient. But the only way we're able to endure until the end is by reading these examples that the Most High said he left for us to be able to have, through the precepts, through the patience and the precepts, reach that hope, right? So, how much time do we have? Let me go and read Hosea 6 and 6. This is pretty much a precept for Psalms, 51 and 16? Go ahead.
Hosea 6 and 6. For I desired mercy and not sacrifice, and the knowledge of God more than burnt offerings.
Exactly. So right here is letting you know, look, this is what we need to do. We got to be, we got to have that mercy within our nation. The Most High is like, look, that sacrifice it's not necessary. Psalms 51 and 16, David says, I know you don't require these sacrifices. If not, I give them to you. But a contrite and broken heart, meaning that repentance, a fully repentant individual, right? So this is what the Most High is always, constantly saying throughout the whole book. Go from there, go to 7 and 16.
Hosea 7 and 16. They return, but not to the Most High. Mm-hmm. They are like a deceitful bow. Their princes shall fall by the sword for the rage of their tongue. This shall be their derision in the land of Egypt.
Exactly. So the Most High is saying, like, look, you always return looking for salvation where there is none. At these idols, at these gods that are no gods, right? Powerless powers. Go from there. This is cold right here. Because remember, one thing that a lot of our people look at right now, not now, but look, when they read the Bible, read the scriptures, they're like, so was that in the past? Is that in the future? If you meditate and go into the scripture in, Ecclesiastes, right? Where it says there's no new thing under the sun. Think about that. If there's no new thing under the sun, the judgments, the Most High didn't say in Deuteronomy 28, in these years, these curses shall come upon thee. In this century, these curses shall come upon thee. It says, no, in general, this is going to happen to you, no matter where you at. Even like the blessings, it says in the memorials, it says you must keep them from generation to generation to generation. Even in the New Jerusalem, we're going to be keeping these laws, these convocations, right? And even these judgments are going to fall upon all the Gentiles that don't want to abide by the law of the Most High. It's a government. Remember, everything is done decently and in order. Without these laws, we have chaos. The Most High is a God of order. He says he's not a God of confusion, right? Disorder brings confusion. Chaos brings confusion. When you have order, there is no confusion, right? So look at what it says right here in 7. What did I say?
I just read 16.
Yeah, Khan. No, go ahead. Go to 9 and 13 through 14.
Hosea chapter 9 and verse 13.
And again, Israel, these precepts we are to meditate on a daily. We can't just read them and think, oh, that happened to our forefathers. Nah, it continues to, go down in our nation, no matter what day it is that we living in. Go ahead.
Ephraim, as I saw Tyrus, is planted in a pleasant place, but Ephraim shall bring forth his children to the murderer.
Go ahead.
Give them, O Lord, what wilt thou give? Give them a miscarrying womb and dry breasts. All their wickedness is in Gilgal, for there I hated them. For the wickedness of their doing, I will drive them out of mine house. I will love them no more. All their princes are revolters.
Imagine that. He said, give them a miscarrying womb and dry breasts. That's cold right there. And why? It's a recompense for the wickedness we've committed against the Most High. So these are things that we also always got to meditate on. It's like, look, when we're going through certain things, we got to look back and think about what is it that we not doing according to the Most High, according to the law. Instead of just taking it, for face value and being like, oh, you know what, it just happened. Nah, we really got to consider what it is that we are doing on a daily, how it is that we're operating, and then meditate on that and allow the Most High to, be able to shed light and us be able to, switch our ways to become better individuals, to be under, the aid of the Most High. So imagine, this is the Most High showing us through his prophets how he was going to operate against us for us forsaking him, right? Go from there. Let's go to Joel. Before there, go to 14 and 1. Same book, Hosea 14.
Gotcha. Hosea 14 and 1. O Israel, return unto the Lord thy God, for thou hast fallen by thine iniquity.
Right, go ahead.
Take with you words and turn to the Lord.
So it says, take with you words and turn to the Most High, right? If you look at the past, when we committed iniquity, because right before that it says, fallen by thine iniquity. So it says, take with you words and turn to the Lord. When we committed iniquity here in the Old Testament, we used to go and give what to the Most High? Offerings, right? Sin offerings and so forth. But look at what the Most High says right here through Hosea. Go ahead.
Take with you words and turn to the Lord. Say unto him, take away all iniquity and receive us graciously, so we will render the calves of our lips.
So it says, so will we render the calves of our lips. What do you think that is? What is it? Con. But right here it's saying, like what I was talking about, remember we used to offer calves as offerings, right? Sin offerings and so forth. Yeah, so it's saying basically, so will we render the calves of our lips, pretty much the prayers, So that's what they're bringing unto the Most High. That's what he's saying. Bring these things to the Most High. Because remember, all them things, and we going already into the New Testament, right? But even then, back in the day, through different individuals, the Most High was showing us, like, look, those offerings, you guys pretty much took them for granted. The book of Hebrews tells you that, right? Let's get that, as a matter of fact, real quick. Hebrews 10 And you can start at verse 4. Because remember, 10 and 1, it says, "For the law having a shadow of good things to come, and not the very image of the things, can never with those sacrifices which they offer year by year continually make the comers thereunto perfect." Now read verse 4.
Hebrews 10 and 4. For it is not possible that the blood of bulls and of goats should take away sins. For wherefore...
Jump down to, yeah, you go ahead and read that.
I got you. Wherefore, when he cometh into the world, he saith, Sacrifice and offerings thou wouldest not, but a body hast thou prepared me. And burnt offerings and sacrifices for sin thou hast had no pleasure.
Exactly. So as you know, you read the whole chapter, it's talking about Yahweh being the ultimate sacrifice. But going back to this, it's talking about, look, those offerings that you guys gave yearly didn't bring you to that perfection. So now you got to present. The New Testament tells you, present ye, as living sacrifices. Right here, through Hosea, he's saying, look, go and render the calves of your lips, those prayers, and be sincere with them. Just like the sister said, look, we used to do it. Mark 7 and 6 talks about, lip service. Saying, go ahead and bring these prayers, but really mean them. That's what Hosea right here is reminding Israel. Like, look, make sure you get on point, because the Most High is not playing with y'all. And look at what happens in the next book, Joel 1.
1 and 1?
Yeah.
Joel chapter 1, verse 1. The word of the Lord that came to Joel, the son of Pethuel. Hear this, ye old men, and give ear, all ye inhabitants of the land. Hath this been in your days, or even in the days of your fathers? Tell ye your children of it, and let your children tell their children, and their children another generation. That which the palmer worm hath left hath the locust eaten, and that which the locust hath left hath the cankerworm eaten, and that which the cankerworm hath left hath the caterpillar eaten. Awake, ye drunkards, and weep, and howl, all ye drinkers of wine, because of the new wine, for it is cut off from your mouth. For a nation is come up upon my land, strong and without number, whose teeth are the teeth of a lion, and he hath the cheek teeth of a great lion.
So right here it's talking about pestilence and talking about beasts too coming at the nation of Israel, right? The curses, the same thing that's always going to happen if we're going against the Most High. And then, it talks about all that, and this is what Joel tells the people to do. Go to verse 14.
Verse 14, sanctify ye a fast, call a solemn assembly, gather the elders and all the inhabitants of the land into the house of the Lord your God, and cry unto the Lord.
Exactly. So the Most High is saying, look, let these people know what's going to make my heart turn from destroying them. So he's going in right here saying, look, sanctify, make sure you go ahead and fast. It says, call the elders, gather everybody, make sure that you guys are in one accord so I could consider and not destroy you. So I'm not going to go through the whole book of Joel. You guys, pretty much it's always the same thing, and then the last chapter, it talks about the promise. A lot of these books, towards the end, it always talks about the promise, and it confirms who this promise is going to be given to. Also in the book of Joel, you read about, us being given, first it states in 2 and 27 that we are his people, right? It says, read that actually, Joel 2 and 27.
Joel 2 and 27, and ye shall know that I am in the midst of Israel, and that I am the Lord your God, and none else. And my people shall never be ashamed.
Go ahead.
And it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. Your old men shall dream dreams. Your young men shall see visions. And also upon the servants and upon the handmaids in those days will I pour out my spirit.
Which is, where we at right now. All praise to the Most High. Israel's waking up, but it's showing you, look, these warnings have been given to the Most High's people throughout every generation. Throughout every generation. That's why it's necessary for us to continue to give this knowledge and share this knowledge to the people, because our people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. Our people don't look into it. Right here in chapter 3, it talks about the nations, how they took us, and how, you know, pretty much the transatlantic
Slave trade.
Man, lost my train of thought. Captivity, pretty much, right? It talks about it right here, and it talks about it even before that. It went down in different generations. So let me see what else I wanted to bring up out of here. I think that's it. In the book of Amos, he goes into mainly, you know, again, judgment. God's judgment is not only Judah. It talks about everybody. It talks about judgment on Moab, Judah, and Israel.
You're right.
You know, so just showing you, even Edom is talked about. So it's showing you that the Most High, he is a just God no matter what. He says, look, I'm dealing just with no matter if it's Israel or if it's not, you know, if it's another nation, right? Because check this out. So much to cover, but just go to look at how Israel was dealing with our people. Go to 2, and you can start at 11.
Amos 2 and 11. And I raised up of your sons for prophets, and of your young men for Nazarites. Is it not even thus, O ye children of Israel, saith the Lord? But ye gave the Nazarites wine to drink, and commanded the prophets, saying, prophesy not.
That's kind of like what we hear in the streets nowadays, right? It's the oldest story of Israel. We always go against what the Most High sets up. Nazarites, right, they're supposed to not be given any drink. Israel says right here, the Most High says, like, look, you gave Nazarites to drink. And then the prophets that are supposed to prophesy, you told them to prophesy not. Go ahead, read 13.
Behold, I am pressed under you as a cart is pressed that is full of sheaves. Therefore the flight shall perish from the swift, and the strong shall not strengthen his force, neither shall the mighty deliver himself.
So going back to being at the bottom of the totem pole. Why? Because we stay disobeying the Most High. But look at this right here. So it's talking about judgment. Book of Amos talks about a lot of judgment of various nations. Also talks about the day of the Lord. He says, woe unto those that desire the day of the Lord, because it's going to be a pretty dark and gruesome day. Then in chapter 9, it tells, you know, it refers to Israel again. Check this out. Go to 9, and you can start. The whole chapter talks about, you know, again, the way people are not going to be able to hide from the judgment of the Most High. And you can start at verse 8, okay. 9 and 8.
Amos 9 and 8. Behold, the eyes of the Lord God are upon the sinful kingdom, and I will destroy it from off the face of the earth.
So remember, Most High is a just power. So it's saying the sinful kingdom. We know for the most part the sinful kingdom is the kingdom of Esau, right? But the Most High clarifies it right here that pretty much anybody, no matter what nation you are from, you will, you know, be considered part of that sinful kingdom if you're acting, you know, if you're going against, if you're transgressing the law. So then he says this. Go ahead.
And I will destroy it from off the face of the earth, saving that I will not utterly destroy the house of Jacob.
So that's including the house of Jacob. So it's saying, saving that I will not utterly, completely destroy the house of Jacob. Go ahead.
Saith the Lord, for lo, I will command, and I will sift the house of Israel among all nations, like as corn is sifted in a sieve. Yet shall not the least grain fall upon the earth.
So the Most High is saying, look, all Israel that did their part, I'm going to hold them down. I'm going to filter them out of that sinful kingdom and their destruction. Then he says this. Go ahead.
All the sinners of my people,
some of them,
all the sinners of my people shall die by the sword. which say, the evil shall not overtake nor prevent us.
That's what a lot of us say, right? Oh, we Israel. Most High got us anyway. We good. Most High says, all the sinners of my people shall die. If they committed iniquity, exactly, by the sword, they're going to be punished. So it's necessary, Israel, that we don't take this time that we have of grace for granted. Go from there, go to your favorite book, perhaps, the book of Obadiah, the largest book in the Bible. Right. All right. Go ahead and read Obadiah. Let me just get, what is it? Man, I have a lot of Amos. Yeah, Obadiah is pretty much talking about Edom. I had a lot of things I wanted to pull out from Amos, but that's pretty much, one of the main things is talking about judgment and also telling you that, the Most High is not going to spare nobody. Anybody that commits iniquity is going to go down. Get Obadiah 4.
Obadiah, verse 4. Though thou exalt thyself as the eagle.
For all those people that continue to fight and say that the so-called white man is not Esau, think about it. It says, though thou exalt thyself as an eagle, as the eagle, who else has done that? Whether it comes from the Romans, even the Grecians, all the way down to the good old US of A. No other nation has done that. And I don't even know so much of the history of Mexico, but I'm not sure if that was them bringing that or if that was the Spaniards that brought that. But for the most part, 'cause people might throw that in the mix. But remember, a lot of people in Mexico are Spaniards. But either way, the so-called white man is the one that exalts himself as an eagle. Go ahead.
Though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, and though thou set thy nest among the stars.
Who else does that? Russian, Sputnik. You got Star Wars by Esau. No matter what, country they want to claim, right? They set themselves amongst the stars. Go ahead.
Thence will I bring thee down, saith the Lord. If thieves came to thee, if robbers by night, how art thou cut off? Would they not have stolen till they had enough?
Jump down to 9.
And the mighty men of Teman shall be dismayed, to the end that every one of the mount of Esau may be cut off by slaughter.
So Teman was a stronghold of the nation of Esau, right? So it says all the mighty men of these Edomites, right, shall be brought down. It says they will be dismayed, and that to the end that every one of the mount of Esau may be. Did I get ahead of myself?
Cut off by slaughter. 9.
All right, go ahead.
To the end that every one of the mount of Esau may be cut off by slaughter.
You guys are listening to that, right? Because a lot of people have issues with us talking about that in the streets. This is what the Bible is stating. Just as he said that the Most High is not going to spare any wicked Israelite, he says all the house of Esau shall be cut off by slaughter. Go ahead. Let's see why.
For thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever.
For what?
Cut off forever.
Cut off forever. Go jump to verse 14.
Neither shouldest thou have stood in the crossway to cut.
Start at 12, I'm sorry.
Okay. Verse 12. But thou shouldest not have looked on the day of thy brother in the day that he became a stranger. Neither shouldest thou have rejoiced over the children of Judah in the day of their destruction. Neither shouldest thou have spoken proudly in the day of distress.
Go ahead. These are all the things that Esau has done against Jacob, against the nation of Israel. Go ahead.
Thou shouldest not have entered into the gate of my people in the day of their calamity.
You read about 70 A.D. You see how they did us. They came up in with, what was it, Titus and, what was the other guy's name? Vespasian, right? They came in and they sieged the house of Israel, Jerusalem. So it says, you shouldn't have done that, right? Go ahead.
Yea, thou shouldest not have looked on their affliction in the day of their calamity.
And I know people are going to say that's 70 A.D. How was that? Well, that happened various times prior, right? It happened a couple of times before that. It happened throughout history, no matter what. So remember that siege, that wasn't the first time that had happened to the nation of Israel. It was done throughout history. But even this right here is showing you other incidents where Esau was always trying to cross the borders and come through and destroy Israel in a unjust manner. Go ahead.
Nor have laid hands on their substance in the day of their calamity. Neither shouldest thou have stood in the crossway to cut off those of his that did escape. Neither shouldest thou have delivered up those of his that did remain in the day of distress.
Exactly.
For the day of the Lord is near upon all the heathen, as thou hast done. It shall be done unto thee. Thy reward shall return upon thine own head.
Exactly. So that's what the Most High is saying. Look, the reward is going to return upon thy own head. Right? And yeah, I'll take that back. It wasn't referring to 70 AD. Just to correct that. It's another situation that happened. I believe it was like 586. Yeah, Babylon and all that. But either way, the Most High is saying, for everything that you've done, the recompense is going to fall upon your own head. And read 18.
And the house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame, and the house of Esau for stubble. And they shall kindle in them and devour them, and there shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau.
Regardless, that's going to be the recompense for all the wickedness that they have done against the nation of Israel. They continue to do till this day against us, right? So that's what the book of Obadiah is. The book of Jonah, it talks about, Jonah being sent on a mission by the Most High to Nineveh to make sure that, he gave them fair warning. He served them with a 40-day notice, I think it was. It was 40-day notice that he gave the people in Nineveh. That's after, he tried to go against the Most High and fell into the mouth of the whale. He thought he was at the bottom, but the Most High spared him. So after that, he realized, like, look, I can't go against the Most High. I'm going to do what I need to do. So he went, he let, Nineveh know about all their transgression. Let's go ahead and read that right quick. Get the book of Jonah 1 and 9.
Jonah 1.
3 and 7.
Right. Jonah 3 and 7. And he caused it to be proclaimed and published through Nineveh by decree of the king and his nobles, saying, let neither man nor beast, herd nor flock taste anything. Let them not feed nor drink water. But let man and beast be covered with sackcloth and cry mightily unto God. Yea, let them turn everyone from his evil way and from the violence that is in their hands.
So he had already talked about it. Go to read verse 4, right above that.
And Jonah began to enter in the city a day's journey, and he cried and said, yet 40 days, and Nineveh shall be overthrown.
So this is the message that he brought, right? And then in verse 5 it says, so the people of Nineveh believed the Most High and proclaimed a fast and put sackcloth from the greatest of them to the least of them. And they said, not even thy flock, nothing. Nobody was supposed to touch water or eat any food, right? And go down to where you left off, verse 9.
Who can tell if God will turn and repent and turn away from his fierce anger that we perish not?
Go ahead.
And God saw their works, that they turned from their evil way, and God repented of the evil that he had said he would do unto them. And he did it not.
Exactly. So the Most High, through, Jonah and Jonah bringing this message, the people in Nineveh were able to repent, and the Most High spared them. Jonah got upset. I don't know why Jonah was in his feelings or whatever, but that's what the book of Jonah, that's what it's about. So showing you again, these prophets, their whole mission is to warn us, remind us of the recompense that we will receive if we follow the Most High, and then also the recompense that we're going to receive if we go against the Most High, which is what the whole Bible is really about. The book of Micah is the same thing. It talks about, it talks about a lot of idolatry. In the book of Micah, it shows how, we followed a lot of graven images. We gave power unto them images and these idols instead of, following the Most High and so forth. And then Micah reminds us what the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 10, talks about. Go and read 6. Chapter 6 and verse 8. Yeah, the book of Micah 6 and 10.
Oh, my bad. I was drawing. Micah chapter 6 and verse 10. Are there yet the treasure of wickedness in the house of the wicked, and the scant measure that is abominable?
That's Micah 6.
Yes.
6 and 8.
6 and 10.
I said 10, right? Salaka. 6 and 8.
Micah 6 and 8. He has showed thee, O man, what is good, and what doth the Lord require of thee, but to do justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with thy God.
So again, it's just telling you, look, this is what the Most High requires of you. This is the only thing that you should worry about. Remember in Ecclesiastes, it talks about, it says the conclusion of this whole conversation is fear the Most High, right? And keep his commandments. But we need a whole book to give us examples of what happens if we don't, and what happens if we do, which is good because, we are hard-headed people, so we need the book. We need the history to be able to see no matter what generation it was, the Most High dealt with them the same, no matter what. Then you continue on, Nahum, the Most High, and Nahum talks about, him being the ultimate power, that he is slow to anger, but, nobody could stand before his ultimate power. Then Habakkuk talks about something I want to bring out in Habakkuk is 1 and 4.
Habakkuk chapter 1 and verse 4. Therefore the law is slacked, and judgment doth never go forth. For the wicked doth compass about the righteous. Therefore wrong judgment proceedeth.
Yep, exactly. And I guess we're going to just shoot out some of these names and some of these things that you guys could look up. I know you had a couple. Just give them those names that you had about, different things that have happened after, what we read about in the Bible. A couple names that you could look up on my end is, Nat Turner. You got the movie. A lot of our people were disappointed with the movie, but I mean, it was what it was. He didn't. I mean, the revolt was what it was. Nat Turner was able to put out a couple of people. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, he was taken, and he was put out by Esau. Let me go through it right quick. See if let me see what I got. So we have Nat Turner. We have the Stono Rebellion in 1739. You got the New York slave revolts, which was a couple of them starting like around 1712. You have the German Coast Uprising in 1811. This was in the Mississippi River. The Amistad Ship Revolt. There's also a movie on Amistad. You guys see, how our brothers fought. This was around 1764. Also, you had the Black Panthers. You had Fred Hampton, Huey P. Newton, right? You had the revolt of San Miguel de Guadalupe. This occurred down in the Caribbean islands. You had the first Maroon Wars in 1728, which pretty much everything was pretty much similar. Our people were able to revolt against these heathens, whether they were French, Spaniards, British, or Americans. Our people had these revolts against them. For example, the Haitians. The Haitians, you wonder why Bill Clinton or the Clintons did them dirty, continue to do the Haitians so dirty, because the Haitians really brought it. They gave Esau, man, a run for their money. Pretty much, Esau couldn't deal against our Haitian brothers, and a lot of other brothers, that we read about. Let me pull out a couple of other names that I have here. You have on the, what do you call it, so-called Latino side, you have Zapata, You know, Zapata was a Mexican revolutionary. You know, he organized a guerrilla. He was in the south side of Mexico. He did who fought in guerrilla actions during the Mexican Revolt. He formed and commanded the Liberation Army of the South, an important revolutionary brigade, and his followers were known as Zapatistas. So when you see that guy with the hat, with the big mustache, that's Zapata right there. He was an indigenous brother that fought for the rights of the indigenous people. Because if you look at the history of Mexico, a lot of the northern side of Mexico were Spaniards, and other nations. I mean, other people from other countries, which at the end of the day are Edomites. So this is what the Mexican Revolution was about. He fought, but at the end of the day, even till this day, they use his movement as pretty much a cover up. Because when you look at Mexico, mainly all their presidents have been heathens. You also had at that time, you had what you call the Adelitas or las Soldaderas, which were women fighters who made a significant contribution to both the federal and rebel armies of the Mexican Revolution. The few actually engaged in combat, their assistance to male soldiers in fighting the war were monumental. In South America, 1740, around that time, you had Tupac Amaru II. He was a cacique, a chief, in the Tinta region. Funny, right? Tinta means dark, brown, melanated. In the Tinta region of southern Peru, he received a formal Jesuit education, but maintained his identification with the Indian population. In 1780, he arrested and executed the corregidor, which was the provincial administrator, Antonio Arriaga, on charges of cruelty. At the end of the day, how the brother was done, the Spaniards got him, and they tied a horse to each of his limbs and tried to split the brother. He was strong enough that the horses weren't able to do that, but he was put to death regardless, him and his wife. You also have Gaspar Yanga, often simply known as Yanga. If you know who has a song, D Smoke and Snoop have a song with that name. I don't know why, because they don't really talk about the brother. But Yanga was around 1545. He was an African, all right, so-called African, a Hebrew, known for being the leader of a maroon colony of slaves in the highlands near Veracruz, Mexico, the New Spain, during the early period of Spanish colonial rule. He is known for successfully resisting a Spanish attack on the colony in 1609. He freed all the slaves that were there in that part of Mexico known as Veracruz, and even till this day they have a memorial for him yearly. I forgot what time of the year they do it, but they do it yearly, and they have a big statue of him out in Veracruz, Mexico. I also had a couple of the brothers, as far as the Native Americans. You have Geronimo, Chief Joseph, Sitting Bull, Tecumseh, and the list goes on. I know the brother got a couple of other people throughout the four corners. You bring those up.
Right. Yeah. So on a more global perspective, and then keeping in mind that the Most High scattered us amongst all nations of people across the whole world. So that goes from Asia, the islands, South America, Central America, anywhere. So some of the sources that I got, one of the first ones was during the Spanish-Philippine War in let me get the year for you. That's the wrong article. In the 1900s, so in the American-Filipino War, pretty much history-wise, the Filipino over there, which some of them are Israel, they had just got finished from independence from Spain, but then here you have America coming in to recolonize under the American government. So with that, just like how Memorial Day over here in the States has our people, blacks, Mexicans, Israel, in the army, there is one particular Southern Kingdom brother, Judah, a so-called black, that was fighting in the Filipino War, the American-Filipino War, but decided to defect and help out through a persuasion of some of the indigenous Filipinos, which were some of our people, persuading blacks in particular, like, why are you fighting in this war against us? Like, we're the same people. We hear the things that over in America, what they're doing to you. So this guy, his name was David Fagan. He was a so-called black Israelite, and he defected to the side of helping out the Filipino side of the American-Filipino War. And he actually rose up in the ranks within the Filipino armies, and he was combating and doing his thing. But I mean, ultimately, as history shows, that war was succeeded to the winning ship of America for now. So that guy's name is David Fagan. Another one, which I'm not going to go too much into, but in New Zealand, the indigenous people there, the Maori, there's a guy named Potatau Te Waherawero. It's pretty difficult to pronounce, but he had gathered many different factions of the Maori people when in the 1800s, Europeans, Esau, was coming over to colonize the land, and they're like, you know what, we can't sustain our lifestyle if we keep giving them, our land, because eventually Esau, like everywhere else, he started making plantations and using the people there as slaves. So this was one man who united some of the differing Maori people in New Zealand. Waikato leader Potatau Te Waherawero. So that was in New Zealand in the 1800s. Another one I got is Kunhambebe of in Brazil, of the Tupi people, which is Southern Native Americans, and he, similar like the Maori, he united differing tribes within they call themselves collectively the Tomayo Confederation, which is a amalgamation of Tumaya or Tupis, Tupinambas, different tribes of the Tupi people in South America. So they were particularly fighting against the Portuguese, still Esau. And this was really early on. This is in the 1500s. So that was the Tomayo Confederation in Brazil, concerning the Tupi people. And one of the leaders at that time was Kunhambebe, and he was the chief of that confederation. And then
let's wrap it up. You got one more?
Yeah, I mean, it's not too much.
Just give the name. That way we wrap it up.
The caste war of Yucatan in the 1800s.
Oh, yeah.
That's I don't have a particular leader, but you can look up that too. Indigenous people against the Spanish government in Central America. So there's a lot.
That goes along with the Haitian revolts as well. It's a lot, like the brother said. There's a lot of memorials that we don't even know about. We don't even consider, because they're not, shown to us. They're not, we're not educated in regards to these events. But one thing I want to finish it off with is this right here. Get Judith 5. Because imagine all these revolts, like the brother said, the outcome of them has always been the same. And the reason for that is this right here. Get Judith 5. And you can start at, well, I'm going to summarize this mug. Pretty much as Holofernes, he's trying to go to war with Israel, and the children of Israel pretty much prepare for war. So he goes and asks Achior, an Ammonite, for advice of who these people are. So this individual, for some reason, I guess he had never heard of Israel. But this Ammonite, he like, look, these individuals right here, he gives them the whole story. He goes all the way to the Exodus. Goes and talks about the whole history of Israel, kind of like Rahab did, right? So he knew who Israel was as a nation. And then the meat of it is right here, verse 17.
Judith 5 and verse 17. And whilst they sinned not before their God, they prospered, because the God that hateth iniquity was with them.
You see how descriptive it is? He says, the God that hateth iniquity, that hates iniquity, was with them, as long as they sin not against that God, right? Go ahead.
But when they departed from the way which he appointed them, they were destroyed in many battles.
And what?
They were destroyed in many battles, very sore.
So you see, that's the outcome of all these revolts, no matter what. Look at how they did the brother. Hampton, right? He was 21 years old. They rolled up while he was laying with his pregnant wife and killed him in a cowardly way. Think about that. Every other brother, you look at Tupac Amaru, like I was telling you, tied him up to four horses and did him dirty right in front of his wife, while his wife was done the same way. And then you continue on. The devastation of the Indies gives you a brief account of all the ways that Jamaicans, the Dominicans, the Mexicans, the South Americans, the Native Americans were done, hung by the dozen and burnt up, chopped up and tossed to the animals, tossed to the dogs, right? Breasts chopped up. The women were chopped in half with their fetuses inside of them as a sport for the Spaniards. Think about it. That's what the Most High says right here. It says, but when they departed from the way which he appointed them, they were what?
They were
destroyed.
Yes, they were destroyed in many battles, very sore.
Real ugly, right? Go ahead.
And were led captive into a land that was not theirs. And the temple of their God was cast to the ground. And their cities were taken by the enemies.
Isn't that the story of Israel?
Yep.
No matter where in the world we've been at, or we are, that's exactly what continues to happen. Yep. And then he continues to say, look, right now they're in a good position. They're listening. They're abiding to the laws. So if you want to be a fool and move on them, let that be your move. God was foolish. He did. He got done up. So again, what I'm trying to bring out with that is that no matter what type of revolt we go and engage in, if we don't have the Most High on our side, we're not, the sin is, if we have sin in the camp, we're not going to succeed. We're going to see that destruction at the end of the day. So with that, again, forget about Memorial Day and remember our fallen soldiers. Remember our history. Remember our, convocations that we must keep. For example, tomorrow's a new moon. Ain't nobody talking about Memorial Simon was a week ago? Yep. About a week ago, but nobody talks about that. But everybody gonna be talking about Memorial Day, what to do, right? Which at this moment you can't really do much. But again, remember, Job 8:8, inquire of the past. And with that, say shalom and until the next time.